Hello, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Good to see you today.
Good to be here. Good to see you also.
Yes, sir. And good to see every one of you who is joining our podcast, even though I can't see you physically. Good morning to you, and thanks for taking the time to join our discussion
Yeah.
today. Today
Yes.
we're about to get into a very exciting discussion. We want to discuss largely. We want to be talking about Africa. When I say Africa, I mean Nigeria and every other country in Africa. There's a lot happening around the world today, and the things happening in the world today kind of don't exclude or exempt Africa. The impact of global happenings is felt on this continent, and it's past time that we look at our problems as just individual nations or people. We must begin to collectively consider what is best for Africa as a continent. Africa is often said to be a land of challenges, but it is also a land of opportunities. And so, in today's discussion, I would be taking Prof up on the things happening around the world, the implications they hold for Africa, and where does Africa's future lie? Should we be concerned or should we be excited about the many opportunities we have to for growth and development on the continent and ways in which we can explore and exploit those opportunities. So these and a number of issues around that to form the base of our discussion with Prof today. Please, as I say to you, if you have a question, a comment, or you have your perspective to share, engage with us in the comment section. Prof, we get
Yes.
right down to it. So I want to begin by asking you to describe, or talk to us about this concept of old money and its power play in global politics.
Okay. So old money. It's largely the money that is talking about the European situation, the European banks, the European aristocracy that ventured out into globalization for a lot, for hundreds of years
Yeah.
in exploiting or benefiting from resources around the world, in dominating trade, and this old money, it's sort of the economic policies of these European powers to try to maintain their dominion. And one example of this would be the American Revolution, how the European powers, and particularly Britain in that time, tried to suppress the industrialization of America, to maintain it as an agricultural center with slavery. Slavery was outlawed at some point in Britain, but it was still allowed in other dominions.
Mm.
Uh, and So America was one of those in the 18th century that was used as an agricultural base for cheap products for Europe. And so the European banks would supply credit to nations and dictate the terms of that money, how it was used, whether it was used for industry or for other, just maintaining imperial infrastructure and keeping the nations from developing real industry. And interest rates and control over finances was maintained by the European banking powers. And this was it said that the American Revolution was mainly over taxes, but that's only part of the story. It was mainly over who controlled American money. And so they had a war revolution. And then after that, they had development of American economic policies. And one of the main persons involved in that was Alexander Hamilton. And he developed a system of economics whereby America would not use foreign money. or
Yeah.
what we call old money, the banking structures which protected the interest of the possessors of old money. When we talk about old money, we're talking about money that's inherited and passed down from generation to generation, and
Okay.
is under those sorts of controls through global banking arrangements and so on. The banking arrangements protect the inherited money of certain families, and so America wanted to develop a system where we had so-called new money that
Mm.
anyone could rise to the top. It's not just those. It's not just inheritors of money that are protecting their own interests and their own families from
Yeah.
generation to generation. But America was supposed to become the heroes of sort of any man can rise up,
Mm.
no matter the nationality, tribe, gender. If any person, so America was to be a merit-based, a meritocracy, if you like, or based on merits, the merits of the individual, not their race or color or gender or anything else. And but if the person could obtain the correct merits to flourish and to do well in business and entrepreneurship and so on, that person could rise to the top. So that person could become powerful. So
Yeah.
uh, power wasn't limited to old money. Those who possessed the controls that have sort of inherited from generation to generation, but new people could rise. So you get America had a lot of rags to riches stories.
Mm.
People born poor, but
Yeah.
had opportunity. Anyone could have the opportunity to rise up. The laws were in favor of allowing anyone with merit to make a way for themselves and to become somebody.
Mm.
They wouldn't be hindered by old money regulations, old money biases, and impositions and controls and suppression. So that's the Revolutionary War in America was to establish this meritocracy, if you like, just like their independence statement, their Treaty of Independence says, or not treaty, Declaration of Independence says that all men are created equal.
Yeah.
Uh, it, Even people, the founding fathers of America, that wanted to include slaves in that all men, meaning all men. But
Mm.
there was others, there was still infiltration from the old money systems that perhaps prevented that from happening. So even though America became an independent nation, it was still a mixed bag. It was still a mixed multitude.
Mm.
There are people in that new America that were paid off and put there like spies or operators from the old money system
Yeah.
that were undermining the new system and making sure that America came back under former controls, banking controls,
Mm.
and suppression. Because the old money, even though you had the war revolution, the old money still had most of the power when it comes to banking and development and so on. So America then was very poor when it came out of the war revolution, and it was struggling and could easily be overtaken again by the more powerful globalist interests. But Alexander Hamilton developed a new kind of economy through which American banks would be independent from
Mm.
their cousins in Europe, in Britain and Europe, and that they would not borrow money from Europe, but America would develop its own credit. So Alexander Hamilton nationalized American banking, and I think that some people today misconstrue that and see that as a government nationalization, sort of American government becoming too big, and where banking should be free and decentralized and run by the people. But the problem with that is that European banks and powers infiltrated banking in America and took control of these private banks, and like they have done today with the Federal Reserve, that's
Mm.
ostensibly. Um, a government bank, but it's not. It's a bank controlled by old money, by private interest of banking, global banking. Today, that's the Federal Reserve in America that was established in 1913. So ever since Alexander Hamilton nationalized banking, there's been attempts to infiltrate that and to take it over again with private banking interests from Europe, and they've been very successful. And that's why America today is in trillions of dollars of debt. And so what I was saying in that article, if people can follow this, I'm jumping around a bit, but if people can follow this, is that the debt of America, what is it? I think it's about 37 trillion now. That's
Oh,
going to be wiped out. That's my prediction. And, it's not just my prediction. I'm not saying I predicted this by myself, but through my readings and so on, and studies of this. But there's a new banking system. They are reviving the American economic policies today. Trump's reviving them. And so it won't just be revived in America. This will be revived around the world. And so old money is controlling all nations today through the International Monetary Fund and the Bank of International Settlements in Switzerland, which is controlled by London and the banking these banking families that have controlled global money for centuries. And this International Bank of International Settlements, International Monetary Fund, control Nigeria's money and Africa's money. So when you ask me about the prospects for Africa's future, I'm coming at this from this globalist perspective, because that's the perspective that I study, that I know a little bit about what's happening there. And so the aim today is for nations, America and Africa and other nations, to form an alliance, which is what you call a sovereign alliance. So it's an alliance of friendship that recognizes the sovereignty of each country, that is not building an infrastructure of imperialism, but is rather taking down the old infrastructure of imperialism and freeing nations from the control of foreign money, or old money, if you like to call it that, globalist money. And bringing back in an economic system while each country develops its own banking and its own credit and its own finances that cannot be controlled by a foreign imperialistic system. And so that's the new structure that's being developed at the moment. And old money is desperately trying to stop this. The way they try to stop this is by instigating wars. They want to stop Russia coming up with a new financial system by destroying it in war. And that's why London wants Ukraine to stay in this war. They don't love Ukraine at all. They don't care about anybody. But they want to use Ukraine as a proxy state to destroy Russia and take control of Russia's resources. Exactly what they've done in Africa. They want to do what they've done in Africa. They want to do that in Russia and make it a colony. Now, you can't do that to Russia. It won't succeed. Going back to Genghis Khan, and Genghis Khan tried to take control over the Rus, the Russian people, and he was sent packing. And so was Napoleon. He was destroyed in Russia. And then Hitler was destroyed in Russia. And so it hasn't gone well for anyone that starts venturing into Russia. And Britain, Europe, if Europe takes on Russia, it will be destroyed as well. So that's not going to work out well for them. Europe is on the road to destruction at the moment. What Europe should be doing is forming economic alliances with Russia and forming new money economies, ignoring the old money banks. So these old money banks rule Europe. They rule the government. The government of Britain does not represent the people of Britain. The people of Britain are pawns and subjects, and they are prisoners of the banks just as much as Africa is. It's because the leaders of Britain are servants of the banks, of the old money systems, and they command that the leaders of Europe have a policy of war towards Russia through Ukraine,
yeah.
and so that's going to continue to destroy the European nations. But Europe, the banks don't care about that, so long as they can control the world and take control over Russia and ultimately China. China's been rebellious in recent years
mm,
to the global banking system, and they're setting up their own banking systems through BRICS and other relationships. So this is what the nature of the battle is about today. When you talk about pandemics or digital IDs, ID, they want to bring in digital ID. All these sort of battles, small battles we're in today, digital banking, all these small battles are really part of this wider battle of the old banks still trying to control us. And that's what all these wars are about. They want to control the Middle East through the war between Israel and its neighbors. They're using Israel and its neighbors for their terrorist proxy groups. But for Trump to be able to bring all these Arab countries together in unison is destroying the bank's purposes in the Middle East. And what's going to happen now is Trump's peace deals are all about building new economies. And so a new economy is rising in the Middle East now that's going to destroy old money. And the same thing between America and Russia. They're building a bridge between Alaska and Russia, and it's going to open up trade and development of resources and new money to an extent that we've never seen before in human history. And that's going to destroy the old imperialist controllers of the world. And that's what they're fighting to stop now. This is a real do or die battle. It's very serious. The old money's controlled the world really for hundreds of years. And as I said in the article yesterday that you referred to, it's pretty evident that this debt, old money systems, International Monetary Fund and so on, is controlling America and controlling all nations today through debt. It's debt, including Nigeria. That debt's going to be taken down, and it's like a jubilee. There's a new financial system coming in soon. I don't know all the details of how this is going to be worked out, but there are people that know this, that are working on it. And so peace in the Middle East, peace in Russia is just a part of this. These are sort of beginning steps towards a new global financial system. And after the Second World War, this old money financial system really took control of the world through the Bank of International Settlements that was set up after the Second World War, and gained a lot more power through Henry Kissinger, his policies. Henry
yeah,
Kissinger was Secretary of State in the country that was really a British agent in America. That's well documented. There's no doubt about that. He was an agent of old money, still trying to infiltrate American politics and economic policies, going back to the Revolution. And Alexander Hamilton that brought in a new economic system, tariffs, and control of the American economy.
yeah,
America controlling its own economy, its own finances, its own banking, and setting itself free from old money. Alexander Hamilton did that, and Abraham Lincoln pursued that policy as well. He was assassinated. Alexander Hamilton was assassinated. F.D. Roosevelt also pursued that policy, and he died in office.
oh,
Where he choked on an oyster, and then his policies were totally overturned after the Second World War in the Bretton Woods agreements, global financial agreements. The Bretton Woods system set up after the Second World War that took the whole world back under the control of old money, and pretending to be, a benefit, system benefiting our nations, but it was really to control our nations. So Trump is following the American Revolution concepts of the independence of nations, sovereignty of nations,
yeah,
Declaration of Independence, these principles that all men are created equal, to do away with the control of foreigners over their nations, and Nigeria is under the control of foreigners at the moment. And so Nigeria and Africa as a whole has a lot to benefit from what's coming up now, what's arising. A new alliance of nations, which is not imperialistic, but runs on basis of economics for everybody, development of resources for all nations, development of domestic banking for all nations that's not controlled by a global banking institution, um, and by trade, free trade. In the sense, what I mean by free trade is trade that's the policies of trade that controlled by each nation
Yeah.
itself, and not by some globalist body. Um, so that's the system we're coming into now. Old money systems and banking are trying to stop this through wars and terrorism. Most of the terrorism around the world is financed by old money in order to um, prevent nations coming together against them, against the international banking system, uh, to blind people. Um, Identity politics is the same thing, to separate us among tribes, colors, and races, and sexuality and all these things. Identity politics is to divide us, to stop us coming together as sovereign people, controlling our own destinies, but rather to fight each other and be controlled by narratives of propaganda,
Yeah.
and fighting each other and so on, which weaken us. And so all this identity politics is to weaken us. Terrorism is to weaken us. Wars are to weaken us. And as the more we are weakened, the more we are kept under control of our colonial powers.
Yes, sir.
Divide and conquer has always been their way.
Yeah.
And so this has controlled us, the whole world, Australia, everybody, for hundreds of years. Australia is in the grip of this today. So Australian politicians do not represent the people, but they represent these global powers. So the whole world is, and yet a lot of people don't know this yet. They're still agreeing with the propaganda narratives we see on the news. You know, terrorism is basically because Africans are bad people and they fight each other. That's what the news narratives say. Same in the Middle
Yeah.
East.
Yeah.
They don't reveal that these things are being controlled by foreign money in order to maintain their control over resources and trade routes, and to stop new money from flourishing. You know, if the Middle East becomes strong in peace and development and trade, with new trade routes developing, they will develop new banks that are independent of old systems, and they will flourish. There's amazing wealth that's going to come out of this. And this new wealth that's going to come from Africa, because they're also planning railway lines from South Africa right through Egypt and Sudan into the Middle East and across into Europe, and then from West Africa to East Africa, so that we can trade and swap resources and swap products. And they're also planning the greening of the Sahara Desert for agriculture. These things are very simple to do.
Yeah.
These things have been planned for hundreds of years, but they've been stopped by old money systems so that we don't prosper. This sounds like, conspiracy theories to some people that haven't looked at this, it's a lot easier for them just to sit on their couches and agree with what the news tells them on the television. The television tells them a vision, and they turn the television on and they watch the program. It programs them. It programs their thinking.
Yeah.
Program you. What programs on the TV? And so it's just for the lazy man. And it's not a conspiracy theory at all. It's common sense that those people who have power will try to maintain that power. And if they have a lot of money, they can go to great extents to do that. They can through advertising and all sorts of means, they can control media,
Yeah.
politicians, and through lobbying. and even through pedophilia and uh, what do you call it when you lead people of power into pedophilia and you have evidence of what they've done. Um, you can
You
threaten
blackmail them.
to blackmail them. Yeah, you can. So there's all sorts of ways of controlling politics around the world. You see this at the moment coming out with Prince, that man in the UK, Prince Andrew. That's losing his titles at the moment because it's been revealed that he was involved with orgies and so on, and underage sex with Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein. And a lot more is coming out about that. President Trump is pretending to be coy about that, like he's not interested in revealing Epstein's secrets.
Yeah.
And, this is all strategy. He does this over and over and over again in different battlefields, so that his enemies will think that he's trying to hide something, that he was associated with Epstein in pedophilia. And that's why Trump's not talking about it, and not trying to reveal Epstein's secrets, because they will reveal uh, Trump's secrets. And
Yeah.
so Trump's enemies hate him so much they just don't think properly. I think this hatred has infected their minds, and so they're all demanding the release of Epstein's secrets to try to get Trump. And they're freaking out, and shouting and calling Trump all sorts of things to reveal those secrets. And he's pretending that he doesn't want the secrets revealed. And he does this all the time, as I said. If you look at Trump, to any degree, you find that this is well-known war strategy. And so the Epstein secrets are coming out now, and they're showing that Trump had no dealings with him. And it's Clinton and it's other people and it's all his enemies
Yeah.
that are involved in this, and they're all they're in the process of being revealed at the moment. And Trump is clean because he's not revealing this. He's not trying to get these people.
Yeah.
He's facing other issues that will develop the country, like industry and infrastructure and banking and saving the country from the globalists and from its debt, wiping out the $37 trillion debt. He's involved in all of these things, while the other people are losing their minds and are doing his other work for him, while he gets on with the economy.
Yeah.
So, we're going to see development of Africa's deserts and agriculture, and everyone's freaking out about this because the so-called environmentalists that talk about global warming, they're just part of the old money system that doesn't want Africa to develop its industries, and they fly in their private jets to hold conferences to tell Africa that we're not allowed to have industry because we're polluting the environment. Then they fly home in their private jets to their $1 million mansions that have huge electricity bills. So they can have lots of power, electrical power, but Africa's not allowed to have it. But their old lies have been blown out of the water now because the new money will develop the Sahara Desert and green Africa. Our countries have to be wealthy in order to be environmental. A poor country cannot protect the environment.
Yeah.
Everybody chops down the trees for firewood, and destroys the forest and so on. But a wealthy nation is a nation that can invest in environment rehabilitation, which Africa used to do before its current economic plights. It was rebuilding forests in the Sahara before. So that's going to come back, and there's going to be wonderful development of prosperity, environmental prosperity, agricultural prosperity, industrial prosperity, trade, transport, railway lines, links to the world. Africa will be linked to the whole world in a way that, Current trade ports around the world are controlled by old money. Old money controls the ports. They control the shipping, and they control world trade. But that's all going to be taken from them. And world trade will be controlled by all the nations of the world, not just by a few. Eastern Russia into Alaska, all through the Middle East, new trade routes, all through Africa and the Middle East, new trade routes going to open up. And no global power will be able to control all of this. So that's what old money's afraid of.
Oh,
That their globalism will be cut down and the wealth of individual nations will rise. So
interesting.
Africa and Nigeria have a lot to. That's why I'm very positive about this. Terrorism at the moment is declining. It's reducing in Nigeria significantly. And then the next stage is to liberate Nigeria from its debt, from its foreign banking structures that control it, and from its foreign industrial policies. So Nigeria can hold its own financial policies and industrial policies and begin to build industry and flourish.
Yeah,
And
so that's
once new money controls Nigeria, the sky's the limit. And a very quick recovery because
okay.
it's going to be huge wealth. Sorry, sir.
Yeah, I was just about to cut in there because I wanted you to stretch that line of thought you were on there a little bit longer. When you got started, I was wondering, okay, what does all of this have to do with Africa? Because you began talking about old money, and it was just as if it's a Western kind of experience. All this old money is situated in the West and in the West, and so I was wondering how that affects Africa as a whole. But I think as you began to explain further, talking about issues of terrorism and then especially debt, it began to become clearer. And I want to ask on this subject of debt, how debt is used as an instrument of control, whether political, economic control, and what are those you talked about a jubilee. What's the kind of jubilee that will bring growth and development to Africa? So speak to us about debt as an instrument of control, especially in the hands of old money, and the kind of jubilee that can bring about growth and development within the African continent.
Well, like the proverb says that the borrower is servant to the lender,
Yeah.
and so the one who's loaning the money determines um, the details, the
Mm.
conditions of that money.
Yeah, and the terms, yeah.
So the International Monetary Fund is loaning money to Nigeria, and they determine what that money can be used for, and they determine the interest rates, and they determine our economic policies. They'll say, look, we'll give you this money, but you have to do this to your economy. You have to
Wow.
take down these barriers to international capital. You have to privatize. You have to make these changes in your economic policies, which basically bring down the protections to the Nigerian economy, allowing foreign money to come in and to control our industries, which is what happened. So, going back to the 70s in Nigeria, 1970s, Nigeria had a protected economy, and pretty well everything that we consumed in Nigeria reproduced in Nigeria. And it had borders, financial borders, just like we have, um, borders whereby people can't cross them
Yeah.
physically, in person. You also have financial borders that foreign capital can't just come into your country willy nilly, and it has to be controlled by the national government of that country.
Mm.
What capital can come in, what its reasons for coming in, what it's going to do. Are our industries here protected from foreign money? And so these protections were taken down. Tariff policies, all these things were taken away from the Nigerian government, and they were put into the control of globalist bodies or old money, Western money, if you like. And so basically, people are bribed to do this. People in the country, in control, governments and so on, are given personal money or benefits in some way,
Yeah.
in order to allow these impositions of the International Monetary Fund to take effect. So it's and as I said, that's happened in all nations, even Australia today, where we lose control of our own governments. And So the lender controls the the borrower,
mm,
and that's what's happened in Nigeria. Foreign money has come in. They've opened up the borders, capital borders of Nigeria, allowed foreign money to come in. This is huge amounts of money, buy up Nigerian industries and sell them off, close them down, in order to shift that productive interest to somewhere like China, where
mm,
foreign money has owned the industries in China and can make more profit from them when they're positioned in China, and then import those to Nigeria and make money on the importations. So turn Nigeria from a industrial country into an importation economy.
mm,
So Nigeria then has no jobs. Its wages go down because they're not producing anything, and they lose the value of their currency in Nigeria because they're not producing anything. And
yeah.
then we have inflation. And so we have no autonomy as a country. Even our oil is imported, our refined oil. So we have no autonomy we have no national security, because everything we need as a nation, we depend on other nations for it. And this is what globalism does to a country. It takes away its national security, its national identity, and makes it subservient to global interests. So
Mm,
we cannot stand on our own, whether militarily or financially,
yeah.
industrially. The things that are supposed to be in the country's own hands in terms of our own policy, we're supposed to rule over these issues ourselves as a nation. That's what makes us a nation.
Mm,
When we rule over our own industries, our own financial policies, our own military, and our own foreign policies, and are not dictated to by another body, that's what makes us a nation. Once we're dictated to by foreign interests, we're no longer a nation.
mm,
And that's what's happened. So the reason why we've raised the flag of Nigeria on our site, a big flag recently, is to emphasize the point that we are a nation and we have to reclaim back our national sovereignty and our control
I
over
hear you. I hear you.
um, domestic policies and foreign
Yeah.
policies, and not. And so, in order to do that, we have to overcome debt.
Mm,
So we're not a slave to foreign debt. And in order to do that, that's why I brought in American policy like Alexander Hamilton, Abraham Lincoln.
yeah.
They disconnected their country from foreign debt, and they printed their own money as a nation. Foreign banks said you can't do that; it will cause inflation, it'll ruin your economy, and they scare you. And they're saying the same thing to Nigeria today. Or they will put bad. If you start to do that, they'll print bad stories about you being a terrorist nation, and put
Mm.
more sanctions on you.
Or
Or
get
they'll
an
say,
excuse to do a regime change.
yes. So because they want to keep, they're making so much money out of us, they want to keep us under their control.
Yeah.
And but that propaganda is not true. If Nigeria prints its own money and doesn't borrow, we don't have to borrow anything from foreign countries. All we have to do is print our own money, naira, and make sure that is used for industrial development and infrastructure development. And that way, if you print money and build your industrial capacity with that money, and those industries are producing products which are being sold at the marketplace, those industries are making a profit, and then they can repay that money that the country loaned to them.
Mm,
So you don't have to borrow from abroad. You print money, you loan it to build industries. The industries begin to sell we have a large population here. We can sell our own products in Nigeria, make a lot of money, and then pay off that debt. So we're not a debt nation. We can pay it off. Without industry, you cannot pay off debt. And so that anytime IMF makes a loan to International Monetary Fund makes a loan to Nigeria, they will not allow it to be used for industrial development. That's their policy. They won't allow it because they know that will make us independent if we become
wow.
industrially strong. And so if they make a loan to Nigeria and we can't use that for industrial development, we can never pay that loan back.
Yeah. Yeah.
We become debt slaves. And that's the system as it is. Nigeria will always be a debt slave, always, under the National Monetary Fund. There's no way out of it. and the value of our naira will never appreciate. The only way our naira can appreciate is if we disconnect from the National Monetary Fund, produce our own money and naira, and make an economy, because we have all the resources here.
Yeah, yeah, I was just going to say that.
Economy based on naira,
Yes, sir.
not on the dollar, and that will make our naira valuable again. So when we came here, 1 naira was $1
Wow.
back in the 80s. And that the only way for that to come back is to disconnect from old money and print our own money freely. It doesn't cost anything to print money, and that will not cause inflation if you build industries and then use tariffs to protect those industries from foreign goods
Yeah,
coming.
yeah.
That's how it's supposed to be done. That's the correct economic policy, which Trump is embarking upon now. He's having to reindustrialize America. The former president said it's gone too far. It can never reindustrialize. It'll take a magic wand to do it. That wasn't true. It has to be reindustrialized. And America's full of crime today because it has no industry and it has no proper wages or proper employment. And so as you deal with crime, you have to build industry at the same time. Otherwise, crime will just come back. So you deal with crime, you suppress the crime in the nation. At the same time, you're building industry by bringing in your own money as a nation, bringing in tariffs to protect your industries, and then you're producing jobs for your youth for the future. And that will keep crime down in the future. That's how to build a nation. And you get rid of woke, because woke is identity politics that divides people.
Yeah.
So you got to get rid of that division within a country so that we can work as one people and not build our country instead of tearing it down. And so these are the policies that we see that are the policies that are overcoming old money, because woke and all this identity politics is, as I said, it's engineered by old money systems to make us weak so that they can continue their debt slavery over our nation. They don't want us to become strong. Now, the debt that we have at the moment, that's going to be wiped out, not just in America, but in Nigeria. And because it's going to be exposed that this debt is fraud by the IMF, that it's not actually their money. The International Monetary Fund didn't loan us their money. They just printed new money from the computer and then put it in our account, digitally speaking.
Interesting.
They just press the button and invent $1 trillion, and they send us a portion of it and keep the rest themselves. And that's not real money. So we don't owe them anything. It's a fraudulent debt. Now, it's not like they had money in the banks and they sent some of that to us as a loan.
Yeah, yeah.
They don't have any real money in their banks. None of this is real money. It's what you call fiat money. Or fiat money is fake money. It's not real. It's just printed out of nothing. And so we don't owe them anything. This is not real money. And this is, all countries are going to work together now and delete this debt. And it hasn't yet come into the open, but that's what they're working on. Trump's in agreement with major powers of the world to do this, so that all these nations can be free of old money servitude, debt servitude. So this is what's going to happen. It's going to include Nigeria. I don't know how long this will take to happen, but I'm praying that it will happen quickly.
Amen. Amen. I suppose that the basis for fair trade has to be kind of like fair exchange, which means I have something that you want, you have something that I want, and there has to be the basis for fair exchange for us to, so that
Yes.
nobody feels cheated. But we have a system today where, especially when it comes to the way the West and foreign nations interact with nations on the African continent, where there's no basis for fairness at all. You come to this place and you take resources for next to nothing, for just a pittance. You take them back to your place, refine them, bring them back here, dump them, and collect a king's ransom from us. So at the end of the day, we just reduced to a consumption economy. We're only just dependent on whatever comes from there to eat. And like you said, what's even the reason why we need these loans in the first place? It's not as if we are needing them to buy food. We have a lot of
Mm.
resources here on the African continent. Agriculture is rife in this place. What are we needing these things for? If we develop our agricultural sector, we can actually export these things and then receive the money we need to build industries and everything. As such, not really having any need for these loans. But I do agree with you that sometimes there are puppets in all of these African countries that kind of become like intermediaries for these Western corporations and individuals from over there, and they
Yes.
play on their greed, collecting
Yeah.
bribes and all this to now
Yeah.
sell the
Mm.
future. But we're excited, and like I keep saying, it's the reason why we get the chance to have these discussions with you, because change starts with awareness, people becoming informed, people
Yes.
becoming enlightened.
Oh.
And as
Mm.
you talk about these things, there's a process of education happening, there's an awareness, eyes are open and people are beginning to become conscious, especially as we begin to approach another election and campaign cycle and election year. Gradually there's a need for education, for people to become enlightened, so we can actually take responsibility into our own hands and begin to work towards making our country a better place. You have said over and over and over that nobody is coming to save Nigeria. No international organization, no NGO, no bank from abroad is going to save Nigeria.
No.
Nigerians must arise and take their destiny to their hands and change their nation. The same
Yes.
applies to every other country on the African continent. Africa must stand for Africa. And African
Yes.
countries must begin to form healthy bases for cooperation and partnership, so that we exchange ideas, we exchange materials, and then we grow together, we build together. The African Union must become more than just a paper tiger. Whatever
Mm.
it is that brought them together, they must begin to deliver on those promises, which is making Africa great and delivering on developmental promises, infrastructural promises on the African continent. Now, just as you were about rounding up on your last on the last question I asked, you talked about you mentioned the woke ideology, and that's the next thing I want to take you up on, because this is kind of like spreading the world over. Its influences is everywhere to be seen, and Africa has not been spared. And I want to ask you to comment on the effect of this woke ideology on building an economically vibrant and culturally robust Africa today.
Well, the problem with it is that it's not meritocracy based.
Hmm.
So, like what Martin Luther King said, Jr. said in America, that that a man will not be judged by his race or by the color of his skin,
Yeah,
but by the
yeah,
content of his heart. And so, it's when you give jobs to people based on um, their race or gender, or whether
yeah.
they're transgender. This person's a transgender, a man pretending to be a woman, so he needs a job, or she needs, whatever you want to call the person, needs a job. And so what they do is that woke culture insists that when you build a company, you must have a quota of bisexuals, homosexuals, transgender people, ethnic minority people,
Wow,
and so you've got to have this diversification.
that's serious.
Yeah, and it's a law that they're bringing in many places. That's so when you're employing someone and you're interviewing someone for the job, okay, are you a transgender? Oh, praise God, you go on to the next level of the
Hmm.
interview. If you're just a normal person, a Christian, you're out. You won't get the job because what they hate the most is Christianity.
Well,
And what they say is that Christians have done this, or white people have done this,
hmm.
but it's not the case. It's the old money that's done this, and so it's the control of the old banks. And it's most white people don't know anything about this. If you go to Britain, they don't know they've been ruled by the banks, and by these old money oligarchs. It's all been hidden from them. And so to defeat racism with another racism is just bitterness. Like we were
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
the other day,
yeah.
everyone's in this world. Everyone is looking for reparations. Everyone is, it's the culture of victimization.
Mm.
If I can be a victim somehow, then I can sue somebody, and
Mm.
I claim a payment, so I can then sit at home and just live on the money I want in court. Don't do
Mm.
anything. Don't have a job. Don't have to educate myself. Don't have to contribute to the nation. This is not patriotism. It's not contributing to your nation. It's just seeing what you can get for free,
Yeah.
and so you sit at home and just watch television on your couch and have $1 million. And that's the culture it's producing, where we all try to get something from our neighbor instead of producing something for our neighbor. And
Yeah.
that culture will destroy our country. And the reason they're doing this is because the people that are making these laws will take money. Like there's one person that was revealed yesterday, and they're running a company that's taking money from the government, and for the to promote diversification rules in corporations in the nation. And somebody disguised themselves and met with them in a restaurant and videotaped it, everything.
Mm.
And they were saying how they take more than half the money for themselves. So they had a glass of wine and then began to say everything. Once someone has a glass of wine, there's nothing they won't tell you. And so they didn't know they'd been videoed. And next day it's on television. And
Wow.
now the FBI have visited their house to ask if they'd be happy to continue the conversation with them. So this is why all this, it's the development of corrupt money
Mm.
in a society, and it destroys them. It's not producing industry.
Yeah.
And so what America is based upon was a meritocracy, not a country based on old money or the control,
Mm.
what family you come from, what you inherited, but on what, if you want to stand up and work and get educated and become disciplined and get skills and refine your life, then the country has to be open for everybody to do that.
Mm.
And not that you sue someone uh, to have your future. And they're suing everybody now. This idea of reparations. If I can become a victim and blame someone for my situation,
Yeah.
so everyone is trying to become a victim and look for someone to blame.
Mm.
And I heard last week that there are certain people that are blaming the Roman Empire for for its oppression 2,000 years ago, and they're demanding reparations from Rome.
Wow.
And the current issue, the woman, this is it's unbelievable. It just shows what a joke this is. And so was she prime minister or president of Italy? I'm not sure. This woman said she just told them off and told them what idiots they are. I don't know what country it was in Europe, and said that we built your roads and we gave you a legal system and drainage. We built drains in your country, drainage sewage system.
Yeah.
So you need to
Yeah.
be paying us.
Mm.
This is something we learn today. And but I think if we keep going back and looking for someone who did us wrong, I think Adam and Eve are the main culprits. I think we need to be suing them,
I
all
hear
of us,
you.
all of us. So they need to get some lawyers to protect themselves, and we're coming for them. So this is the nonsense about reparations. Nigeria doesn't need reparations
Mm.
from Britain or from anyone else. All we need is liberty,
Yes, sir.
because we have more wealth than any of these countries,
Mm.
untapped, undeveloped wealth. So if we have liberty in our financial sectors and our industrial sectors, Nigeria will become massively wealthy.
Yeah.
And that is by producing our skills. If we
Mm.
produce a reparations culture, we will destroy ourselves. We'll all become lazy
Mm.
and victims. We're not victims. We don't become bitter. We become better.
Mm.
So a victimhood mentality will destroy us, but an industrial mentality will prosper us immensely beyond imagination.
Mm.
So, identity politics doesn't want us prospered. It wants us to be brought down into a hole of corruption, just
Mm.
dividing money between ourselves. It's corruption. And but getting rid of identity politics and basing our lives on, on merit, on skills, on development, personal development, that will enrich us.
Yeah.
If we develop our personal capacities, we'll become wealthy.
Mm.
And some of us might hit roadblocks in doing that. Some of us might hit racism in doing that. Some of us might, we will always come up against old families that will try and stop us from sharing in their capacity.
Yeah.
We all do that today. Um, we're all under the thumb of those who control our economies and nations. So that's not unusual.
Mm.
But we have to join together and fight against those things, and also promote faith and
Yeah.
Christianity that will produce a more just environment based on love, not based on government corruption, government money.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Oh, thank you, sir. You've been very precise and apt in the way you've answered these
Thank you,
questions and
sir.
talked about these things. You've spoken in a way that we can actually get very practical wisdom to apply directly to where we are. I would want to ask you one last question before we round up today, and that in the light of the current global happenings, how should Africa position or reposition herself to chart, the best developmental course for the continent and its citizens?
Well, we've got to disassociate ourselves with what they call Trump derangement syndrome.
Mm.
People have deranged minds because they hate Trump. Trump derangement syndrome, and they have deranged thinking because they hate Trump, and this syndrome, this a pandemic today, Trump derangement syndrome, and this pandemic is promoted by the old money people.
Mm.
This propaganda on the media and so on, that everyone must hate Trump, and when you can't defeat a person's argument, you have to malign the person.
Mm.
When you don't have the facts on your side, you have to
Yeah.
malign the person. And so when the argument is no longer about the facts or about the best policy, but it's about hating the person, you know that the people are desperate. And what I'm saying this for is because the globalists in Nigeria and all countries around the world are trying to uphold systems that Trump is opposing. And I think one way for us to educate ourselves is to start to learn what Trump's aims are, not the propaganda of it, but the economics of it, the financial systems, um, and move along with it, because they are the policies that will liberate this country.
Yeah.
And I see that also in Australia for our own country, because it's rare that we have a leader that will oppose the old money. There's very few in the world that will do that. They're too afraid of consequences. And so we have to form alliances. We're not saying Trump's always right or that he is our leader in some way. No, Nigeria is Nigeria. But we have to form alliances with people that are opposing these globalist controls. We have to stand together. And so I'm not saying we stand with Trump no matter what we do. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying we become educated,
Mm. I
find
hear you.
out what it is that he's doing and the reasons for it. And it's education is the main issue here. Our education systems in Nigeria and all around the world are dictated to by the United Nations and by old money, sponsorship in global educational systems, charities,
Mm.
philanthropists and so on. When they say they're going to help with education in countries, they dictate the curriculum. And the things that we're learning, we've got to be free from that as a country. We have to develop our own educational systems.
Yeah.
And we have to learn how to think, not what to think. The globalists want to teach us what to think. That is not education. Education is learning how to think critically, how to think analytically, how to
Yeah.
analyze things.
Yeah.
And so we have to analyze our economic situation and our place in the world community, not being subservient to globalist institutions. We've got to analyze all of these things, and we've got to become properly educated. What we do is too much. We make ourselves subservient to globalist education because we still believe the globalists are going to come and save us. We still have a dependency mindset. And that dependency mindset has to go. Globalists will never save Nigeria. That is not their interest. They serve themselves. They do not serve or care about Nigeria. It's
Yeah.
just they're colonialists. They serve themselves. And so we have to get rid of that mindset whereby we need to be saved by somebody. That's put into us through education and through the International Monetary Fund, the debt servitude, the loans they make for aid. And, they're always ready to give us money for aid. So that's going to save us, but it's not. And we've got to become thinkers, and we've got to take responsibility for our own destiny. All countries today, and what I keep on saying is that convenience produces dependence. It's convenient for us not to think for ourselves. It's convenient for us not to educate ourselves. It's convenient for us just to take another loan from the IMF to get over current problems. And the more loans we take from them, the more dependent we become on them, dependent we become to them. So convenience is the enemy of our good and our future. When we take something that's convenient, we become more dependent. So we have to do the work. We have to do the hard yards. We've got to build our capacity, our merit
Yeah.
on an individual level and work together as a nation. Don't be divided as a nation among our tribes. That's what they do. They always divide and conquer, and they do that. The banks in London and so on, they will promote division in this country through the media. They have people to pay. They have people on ground here, and they can very easily promote a narrative division in this country, and then they continue business as usual to control us for the IMF. That's got to stop. We have to not allow that media-driven or whatever, however it's driven politically or media-wise,
Yeah.
narrative of division. We have to stand together. That's the only way we can stand as a people. So it's becoming responsible. It's becoming properly educated. It's standing together as one nation.
Yeah.
And it's getting rid of the dependency culture and refusing to fight against each other. They do that with identity politics all around the world, get people to fight with each other, and that they cannot stand
Yeah.
like that. And so we've got to be educated on this. When people are growing in knowledge in this country, that's one of the things we have to be aware of, our divisions. And to say, no, we're not going to do that. That's how we got over violence here in Nigeria, by loving our neighbors, no matter what their identity is.
Yeah.
That's the only way we can go forward.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
If everyone who's been a part of our podcast and our live broadcast today, if you've been hearing Prof, I think there's so much room and reason for optimism and for excitement. Our best days ahead of us as a continent, Africa, and as a people. I know that there are a lot of struggles today and there are a lot of challenges, but there are also a lot of opportunities also, and so we have to look at these opportunities and get excited, and also become people who embrace education that helps us maximize the opportunities that we have as a continent. agricultural opportunities, the mineral resources we have, and all of these things. We should be able to become educated enough to exploit these things to the betterment of our continent and the enrichment of African lives. You know, Africa has much to offer the world today. Sometimes our number in certain discussions is considered a problem. Take, for instance, Nigeria. Sometimes you hear statements like Nigeria is overpopulated, and we have all forms of kind of mischief happening internationally today. You know, people trying to bring medication that would cover population and all that stuff, you see. But even a number is a resource. You talk about human resource capacity, and we have a lot of that in Nigeria today. With the right education, our numbers become a blessing. See the vast lands we have for agricultural prospect. You know, a number should be able to help us exploit that so that food is in abundance in this on this continent, and Africa can feed the rest of the world, and that should be something that we look to. And so instead of sitting down and feeling like, you know, it's all doom and gloom on the African continent, we need to be excited. God has blessed us, and we should be grateful to God. And it's high time that we begin to, you know, exploit these resources and maximize the opportunities for cooperation on the African continent. You know, Nigeria, Cameroon, other African countries, you know, build a bond and share ideas and come together and work towards making Africa great. You know, everything we need to be what God has called us to be and do what God has called us to do, we have. You know, these and so many things like that Prophet said to us in not so few words today. And I want you to take that to heart, and let's be proud of our country, be proud of our communities, and be proud of the contribution we can make and that we've been called to make Nigeria great, to make Africa great. Prof, thank you very, very much for a
Well done,
very,
sir.
very educating and inspiring and insightful conversation with you today.
Thank you.
You
Thank you,
know,
sir.
thank you so much. Yeah.
Well done, sir.
And
Thank you.
thank you all for joining our broadcast today. Until we come your way again with the next broadcast, do have yourself a great time and make Africa proud. Thank you.